So for today's session, or for this session, like I said, tying in from the previous one, we've looked at the other types of things we can pay for using DCB just now. And now we're going to look at what are the other type of ways we can bill for digital content services other than DCB or alongside DCB, in addition to DCB, or to strengthen our payment offering. To discuss that topic with us today and to share their expertise and their knowledge, we're joined by three panelists. Jason joins us remotely. So I'll ask each of you to introduce yourself and your organization, starting with you, Jason.
Thank you, Anzelle. A pleasure to be part of this discussion and panel. It's unfortunate I couldn't be there physically, obviously due to the issues, but my name is Jason Masai. I'm the head of digital product at Embase Africa. So Embase Africa is a joint entity owned by Safaricom and Vodacom Group. And basically we help to scale the growth of Embase across the African continent. A pleasure to be part of this panel.
Thank you, Jason. Alexis?
Alexis Bartels. I'm a co-founder and CEO of Sam Media. Sam Media develops and sells very exciting digital entertainment services and edutainment services. Our latest product is SingSpace. It's a virtual karaoke service where a user via his avatar can sing on a stage or in a private room together with friends. And we charge the user via different payment methods, predominantly premium SMS and DCB, but increasingly also via alternative payment methods, credit cards, mobile wallets.
Thank you. Aaron?
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Aaron Markowitz-Schulman. I'm the CFO of PowerPay. And PowerPay is one of the largest PSPs for mobile money operating in sub-Saharan Africa. So effectively what we do is we work with companies like M-Pesa and other providers and mobile network operators who offer mobile money, and we provide a single point API connection for merchants to connect to us. And then we have direct integrations with close to 50 different mobile network operators across 18 countries in sub-Saharan Africa. So companies can connect to us. We then, in turn, are able to really quickly turn on access to several hundred million wallets across the continent, enabling companies to collect payments or to send money, and then arranging settlement from the funds that you earn on the continent globally. So we can get money from the continent and payments into your bank account in Amsterdam.
Excellent. So in case you missed it, we've got a nice representation of that little mini ecosystem here, because we have, in the shape of M-Pesa, pretty much, the godfather of mobile money in sub-Saharan Africa. We have a merchant, a digital content merchant, utilizing that alongside DCB, and we have a payment facilitator, a middleman at the lack of a better word, that connects often European and non-African, non-local service and product providers to that audience throughout the various markets that you service. Now let's start with mobile money and with M-Pesa specifically, Jason. We know that it's well accepted and established in markets like Kenya that M-Pesa is used as a payment method for physical goods and for paying my children's school fees and my utility bills. How has it been taken up, and how has it grown as a payment method for digital goods in the last couple of years, specifically since M-Pesa was offered or opened up as a payment method in the Play stores, which I think was 2018?
Yeah, so great question. So maybe just give a bit of context. M-Pesa developed as in response to a customer pain or a need, where you really had a significant population in sub-Saharan Africa who do not have access to banking services. And the first use case was, sending money person to person, which was really, really successful. And we evolved M-Pesa to sort of bring on board merchants. And a key vertical for us is, digital content, service providers. So currently we have in excess of almost 900,000 merchants, and a significant portion of those merchants, do offer digital content in some shape or form. Whether you're looking at, influencers who are, creating content, who in some shape or form accept payments via mobile money. If you're looking at broadcasters who offer channel subscriptions, popularly like Canal Plus in some of our markets like DRC, Rwanda, DSTV in Kenya, Mozambique, and so on and so forth. So I think you can see the evolution of mobile money from essentially a person-to-person use case to basically now creating or supporting a merchant ecosystem where we have merchants who are digital content service providers, and this is very, very, very applicable because not very many people in sub-Saharan Africa have access to bank accounts and to credit cards and to debit cards for that manner. So I think M-Pesa is actually coming to fill in that gap, and you're actually seeing us facilitating payments for merchants, especially in the digital content services space.
Thanks, Jason, and you touched on an important part there, which is the M-Pesa consumer, the M-Pesa user. It's so part and parcel of that consumer's day-to-day existence to complete a payment via M-Pesa that it's such a familiar environment. It makes every bit of sense for digital content providers and streamers, like you just mentioned, Canal Plus, etc., to also offer that as a payment method. I think one thing that's important to remember for digital content merchants, the likes of which are in the room today, when venturing out or starting experimenting with offering mobile money like M-Pesa as a payment method is, you can't necessarily just copy and paste your approach with DCB onto mobile money. And secondly, even if you're billing with DCB, you need to understand that a consumer that's used to interacting with, for example, mobile money, uses what? USSD. Something that in Europe we never use when we're interacting with our mobile phone. I think we receive a USSD push here once a month at 12 every Monday when the panic alarm goes off in the Netherlands to check, whether we're all getting the panic test or whatever. But so Samedia has experience in doing exactly that. Samedia has long since been active in the realm, if you will, of offering mobile money as a payment method in some way, shape or form alongside DCB where possible for your various, the cool content services that you just described. So Jason told us about the M-Pesa side of it. Tell us how that actually compares to DCB, Alexis, from the consumer's point of view. Like, what would be different for me whether I'm paying with M-Pesa than paying for DCB? And then from the advertiser's point of view, how do I have to address it? How do I have to approach it differently, depending on which payment method's coming up?
Yeah, it's a very general question, and in the end, to answer it correctly or in a relevant way, you have to zoom in a little bit to the region or the market. Jason is talking about Africa. Obviously, in Africa, mobile wallet is the primary payment method for many people, replacing a bank account or instead of a bank account, whereas the rest of the world, that's different, although mobile wallets also, mobile money is being adopted quickly in some parts like Asia, South America. So from a consumer perspective, it's what they used to, what they trust. In that sense, for us, it doesn't matter so much. Of course, penetration is key for a merchant, adoption, price points, billing model. Although I just had a quick chat with Aaron about this, and he said, yeah, it's fundamentally different pull versus push, where a subscription model, that's what we are used to, and increasingly in the world with all the OTT players, is based on subscription models. It's very attractive, also for the consumer, but also for the merchants. With mobile money, often it's not possible, but at the same time, you can work around, and that's what we have experienced. We have been struggling to make it successful in Africa. We initially thought it's mainly due to the fact that you cannot do subscription or recurring billing with mobile money, but if you change your products to cater for this one-off payments, then you can make it successful. So, for instance, this SingSpace, yeah, you can buy more songs, or you can buy more rooms or more friends to invite to your room with one-off payments, and that adds up, and eventually there can be enough ARPU to justify the marketing. Yeah. So there is ways to make it work, but it is different, and you have to learn, and it's very local, very specific. If you zoom out, it is a completely different story. Then the rest of the world, I would say, let's say focusing on Europe now. DCB is one of the ways to pay, but increasingly there's other payment methods, and what we see, there's a shift happening to other payment methods first. And I think for carriers, that I want to invite them, encourage them to be aware of that, because DCB is becoming less competitive. That's my message. We see, and we also trying it, some of the markets like the Netherlands, like Germany, like the UK, all the payment methods first. And because it works better. Anyway, we get to that later maybe, but it's a fundamentally different situation than Africa, I think.
Yeah. When we're having the conversation about paying via DCB, and perhaps more specifically about offering services in Africa, we'll often hear, just at the networking event tonight, or we're talking about a new market, or hey, are you live in Nigeria? No, because I don't know if I can get the money out. That whole can I get the money out line, we're all familiar with it. And obviously when we're talking about mobile money, it is a regulated financial instrument, obviously, as we just heard. How is this regulatory landscape looking, and how does it differ? I know that's also vague, I suppose, but between DCB and mobile money, and how are we addressing that when you as merchants or you as payment aggregators, when you're inviting clients into your markets and when you're entering markets to do business in them? How do you deal with these? Maybe Aaron would like to.
In terms of the regulatory environment, in terms of the payment process of how
yes,
you get
exactly.
the funds out of the continent?
Or potential clients of yours that
Sure.
might have those concerns.
Yeah, it's a really good question. And so I've been CFO of PowerPay for about 10 months now, and it was one of the most exciting and most interesting things that I got to really learn about is doing FX from the continent to Europe. And I used to be a banker, and I was like, well, I know people at HSBC, we'll give them a call, we'll talk about how it works. And it's not, it's not quite like that. I mean, for the broader context, we're helping our merchants settle millions and millions of dollars out of Africa across the 18 countries where we operate every single month. So it is possible, but it works slightly differently. So it's not something that you go to your high street bank and say, hey, I've got $4 million worth of kwacha. Can you quote me a rate? You need to have the right relationships. And I don't just say that as kind of like an advertisement for PowerPay work with us, but for us it's really important to have the relationships with the right FX brokers, the right intermediaries, the right banks, and you build this portfolio of liquidity partners who can help you do that. And the other really important thing, and something that works really well for us, is we've been operating on the continent mainly with the collections focus for the last 5 years. We do 2 to 3 million transactions a day. We're collecting millions and millions of dollars every day worth of currency. And we also have a lot of inbound currency as well, because there's funds going in both directions. These can be from NGOs, it can be remittances, it can be government payments. And so we're able to effectively balance these two flows to help people take money out of specific markets when they want to do it. So I would say it's definitely possible, but really, really important that you're working with somebody who understands the market, because most bank treasury desks and most corporate treasury desks just aren't set up to be able to deal with all of these different exotic currencies.
Yeah. Thanks, Aaron. So let's move to the regulation side. When I say regulation, I mean like local DCB or payment regulators, not so much the financial side that Aaron just referred to. Practically, or from practical point of view, if you have a landing page or you have a website advertising your service, and like you said, that difference between push and pull and promoting re-engagement or single purchases once the consumer has actually signed up, how do you balance that, and how do you make sure you remain compliant to both whatever requirements exist from a Momo point of view or an M-Pesa point of view, but also from a DCB point of view, often in the same market.
Yeah, that's a very important point. But I quickly want to go back to the previous point, because for us it's also key that to work in a well-regulated market. It's not only imperative to protect consumers, but also the merchants. And it was touched upon in our previous panel with Ishik and Clement. We have been hit, like what you mentioned, even in the past years, and not in Africa, in Europe as well, by payment providers that were not paying us. They receive the money from the carriers, and then the payment provider in turn doesn't pay us. And we have been investing everything in the licensing great content, developing product, doing marketing, doing customer care, etc., etc. And in the end, we do not get paid, and it's because it's not regulated as a financial institution. There's no way Visa or MasterCard can touch the merchant's money. But in DCB with payment providers, it happens also in Europe. And that is a concern for merchants. So to be able to trust that you receive the money, and especially because there's also very long payment cycles sometimes, and that's also one of the advantages actually of mobile money and other alternative payment methods. With credit card, you get paid every week. I mean, there's no DCB in the world where you get paid every week. So there's other advantages of alternative payment methods, including mobile money, that are just better than carrier billing. And again, the invitation for DCB providers, improve this and become competitive. In terms of advertising, yeah, regulation is also important there. There's more challenges than in terms of telecom operators are more involved, or regulators more involved in how exactly you can advertise. Mobile money, it's less the case.
On the DCB side, yeah.
Yeah, on the DCB side, with mobile wallet, mobile money is less the case. So in that sense, you have to adhere to general advertising guidelines and practices in a country. It's more of a challenge that sometimes we are forced to use different price points for different carriers, or in the same country. And that's something we cannot explain. Like for this SingSpace service, we work with Stingray. We pay the artist the music rights. Yeah, and then we have to explain, oh, but this carrier, this is the payout for that carrier, it's different. And also to consumers, if we have a landing page with different price points, the carrier might wonder why, the consumer, wonders why I'm a Vodafone user, let's say Netherlands, and I pay a different price than a KPN user. It's inexplainable. So the harmonization, that was also part of the previous panel, that is key also.
I think we'll step back to the price point topic in a moment. I just wanted to check with Jason whether I saw you nodding vehemently when we got to the point of regulation or the regulatory environment. Is there something you wanted to add on the topic, Jason?
Yes, I think we are increasingly seeing regulators licensing aggregators in offering payment service provider licenses. Basically due to the increasingly huge need for consumer protection. And I think the reason why we sort of really highlighted to sort of protect the consumer, protect the merchants, and protect the service providers as well, to sort of create trust in the ecosystem. So I think that's really sort of coming to the fore, and I think it's a good development because I think it just means there's a lot of trust in the ecosystem in terms of the flow of value, from consumers, aggregators, to service providers, and so on and so forth, as well as for ourselves as mobile money. We are increasingly seeing as well, greater, sort of scrutiny, as sort of, the payment space sort of continue to grow in a very, phenomenal and fast pace. And that's also a key element for regulators because they're seeing quite a lot of value moving in that ecosystem. So it's increasing for them to just ensure that there's trust in that system. So I think the regulator is exactly a good thing, but also the other flip side is just to ensure that it doesn't curtail some of the innovation that we need to see in the ecosystem.
Yeah, I think a practical, so coming back, thank you, Jason, coming back to the pricing bit then. So practical example, practical use case. In Kenya, if you offer digital content services and you're going to bill those via DCB, I think, or to my last knowledge, that if anyone knows in the room, please shout it, but the maximum price point was 30 Kenyan shillings per day or something like that. Now, if I'm offering a metaverse-based karaoke service or whatever the service is that I've licensed, or live sports streaming or whatever, it would be an impossible business case for me to actually make that profitable. Also, given the billing success rates at that 30 Kenyan shillings a day, because of course in Kenya it's commonplace to immediately change my airtime to a data package. So I'd load airtime, but we can't bill data, we bill airtime. But if there is no airtime, then there's nothing to bill. With M-Pesa as a payment method, it's like a free market situation. Like MasterCard isn't going to tell me you can only charge a maximum of X amount per day for your service, because they're just a payment facilitator, right? And then we have this contradiction when we're saying we want to offer DCB alongside, you know, M-Pesa, and it's definitely, I suppose, or mobile money, sorry, Jason, not only M-Pesa, obviously. It needs to be addressed. The good news is, just in this past week, I've had 3 conversations where others have said, so for the longest time, Momo, which is MTN's wallet in Ghana, was the only one that you can bill on a recurring basis. And I've now heard of 2 others, including M-Pesa, or in Kenya specifically. So the ability to at least bring, so first we had price points that differ, like between day and night, and mobile money was only one-off, but DCB can be recurring, and you need it to be recurring because the success rate is so low. And now we have at least a playing field where you can build them both on a recurring basis. So it's getting there, little step by little step. So with that, with a view on the future and where it's going, and what key sort of learnings, if there are others in the room that are thinking, and I think we've established, all of us, that DCB could well do with having these ancillary payment methods next to it, or it needs to be up to scratch with the other payment methods because it's not the only one anymore. What are we taking out of this? What are we implementing as we're going into these markets where mobile money is a popular payment method? Key takeouts, key message to the audience, Aaron.
Yeah, I mean, I think just to echo with what you were saying, and there are these innovations and changes that are happening, but you know, if you haven't spent much time on the continent in sub-Saharan Africa, it's hard to appreciate how ubiquitous mobile money is. So I just had the pleasure of being in Nairobi a couple of weeks ago. Didn't touch a credit card, didn't touch cash for the whole time. I paid my hotel on a credit card, but taxis, restaurants, coffees, dinner, everything done with Momo. Same when I was in Kigali a couple of months ago as well. So it's absolutely ubiquitous. And I think if you're looking at these markets, you really need to think about like how you meet your customers where they are. And yes, there's differences. There's going to be differences. There's a lot of differences if you're expanding to Africa. It's not just on the payments piece. There's a lot of things that you need to think about, and this is just one piece of the puzzle. But we're able to work with merchants globally from all sorts of different industries, including those who are quite used to recurring payments, like in the broadband space, for example, and find solutions to make it work. So I wouldn't let that kind of put you off in terms of as you think about doing it. And you know, you're tapping into something which is already a common behavior. So much easier for merchants to kind of think about how to approach the market than trying to affect a change in consumer behavior. And working with a system that's great. I would just say, like, you know, aside from being ubiquitous, it's this beautiful, beautiful, elegant system. So I think we have to be kind of give credit to the very good people at M-Pesa for developing something which is like so widespread across the continent. It's really, really simple. It's really, really safe. You don't have chargebacks. You have instant value transfers. The moment you take a mobile money payment, whether you do that directly or through PowerPay, that's immediately reflected in your wallet, and you can settle. So you're not waiting for settlement. So it's got a lot of advantages there as well, which you know, people are really delighted with once they get to explore.
I love the raw enthusiasm.
Yeah, no, I really feel that way.
Yeah,
it's not just because I'm American.
Trust me, but so before I come to you, Alexis, show of hands. Carrier Billing Summit in Nairobi next year? Anyone? First-hand experience? Yeah, I knew it. Thank you, Jason. Me too. Anyway, by the way. Okay, cool. Alexis, you guys are obviously, you're continuing this work in terms of offering, you know, I won't say experimenting because you're way past the point of experimenting, but you're continuing to offer mobile money and M-Pesa and Momo as payment methods alongside DCB in these various markets. What's next, and what do you think needs to happen before we get to a point where you feel like, okay, we've cracked this, we've got this down, this is a sustainable thing, this has worked?
Focusing on mobile money, that is, right?
Yeah. Alongside, yeah.
Nou ja, for us it means indeed the consumer. It's widely adopted. It's easy. It's what the consumer does in Africa or sub-Saharan Africa specifically. So that's a starting point. But on our side, we have the products that we know that people love. We know we can sell them. But yeah, we need to adapt a little bit to what we can charge and how. And what I mentioned just now, we need to make the product such that users are encouraged to do multiple transactions instead of having a subscription model, but now maybe possible in a few markets, but in many not yet. But also with one-off, also in Europe, increasingly we are successful with one-off, even at lower price points, like in France or in Germany, at a bit higher price point, give access for 3 months or 6 months, one-off, not a subscription model, also less issues, and then the consumers can decide to continue or to upsell, to buy something more. So you have to be smart in making it work, because for us, in the end, there is the conversion, so the cost of acquiring a new user, defined by the flow, predominantly, of course, and the cost of advertising, and on the other hand, there's the ARPU, defined by the price point, the billing model, the payout, or the revenue share, and then the equation, there should be a profit for us, because we have to pay for the content, we have to do the advertising. So that's the model we try to make work in every country, and every country, it requires a lot of work, a lot of data cracking to find the sweet spots, but they are there also with mobile money, that very much believe. And we're getting there. And I think some of the learnings also that's summarized by Aaron just now, I mean, some of this carrier billing could use and apply also in the rest of the world.
Exactly. And Jason, from your side, are you also inviting brands, inviting merchants, inviting digital content providers and going, hey guys, come over, come talk to us, going to look at what we're doing, you know, and consider M-Pesa and consider mobile money as part of your product offering?
Yes, we are, Anzelle, and I think just to continue the theme which you just highlighted in terms of the differences between DCB and mobile money.
Yeah.
I think there's a fundamental customer insight in terms of why mobile money has been very successful. And that's predominantly in Africa. Africa is predominantly a prepaid market. And by a prepaid market, what do you mean? I actually load cash on my mobile wallet and actually pay for the service. And not to underscore, you know, what my colleague from somebody has said. You know, you could actually get customers transacting more or consuming more of your content if they can actually, you know, pay per view, you know, make one-off transactions. As opposed to a subscription model. So I think that's a fundamental shift in just understanding the market context, the consumer as well. And that's what we are saying, you know, you're welcome, and I think there's a huge opportunity to leverage mobile money. But I think as a service provider, it's actually very important for you to sort of just rethink the model, the business model that you have. How do you allow your customers to be able to get in and consume content as and when they want, as opposed to a subscription model? And I think that has worked in Europe because obviously the context was very different and so on and so forth. So as you come to Africa, I think a key understanding of the nuances within the market, a key understanding of the users within the market, will actually allow you to be able to grow just to see just the same way that we've seen M-Pesa grow. Because once you give consumers that flexibility to be able to say, you know, I can, you know, pay for you know, a subscription one-off and then probably come and get another one, it will really actually improve not only the experience but the frequency of engagement with consumers with your service. So what we are saying is we are welcome, and at M-Pesa we are actually ready to allow you know digital content service providers to be able to accept mobile money as a form of cash. We have APIs ready from a local level, also at a global level, to allow global merchants to connect to M-Pesa and offer your services to almost 60 million consumers.
Yeah, exactly.
If I may add to what Jason just said, is that in some of the African markets also what happens is all these prepaid users, they top up the prepaid account, but they immediately convert it into data. And there's no money to be charged for via DCB. So that also means the mobile wallet or mobile payment is the way to go.
And in many cases, right, Jason, like my salary would be deposited into my M-Pesa account, right? So for weekly earners, for monthly earners, so that would be my primary source of actually receiving and spending money, is my M-Pesa wallet.
Correct.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Let's hear if there are any questions for the panelists. Ah, I see a hand. Guillermo. There's a microphone coming your way.
Definitely made my steps today. Oh, I'm sorry. There you go. Thank you. You're welcome.
David Lotfi, that was stuck on the 17th floor, also, or on the 23rd floor, also made his steps today.
So a really interesting discussion. It still leaves me with the question of why the mega merchants like Google, let's say Google Play, why mobile money hasn't been able to sort of fill the gap that sort of DCB has left, because DCB, the commercials are not right. So why is it that there's so very few connections to mobile money with these sort of mega merchants? Is it just about the inverted commas, the thing about getting the money out, or is there also are the commercials also not that competitive for these sort of big sort of digital media, providers?
Is it okay if I take that? I mean, and part of me wants to turn that question around and into the room and say, like, why aren't you all coming to Africa? I think it's probably a couple of things. One is just as we've talked about already, the payments ecosystem is different, not better, not worse. It's just a different way of transacting. And big companies sometimes have reticence towards that. That being said, also Africa has not been a priority expansion geography for a lot of companies. Like there's been Asia, there's been South America, but the way we look at it is this continent, and it's sub-Saharan Africa is 54 different countries. It's not a monolith, but this is a mega trend. If you look at every demographic, every digital indicator, like this is where you need to be as a company if you want to invest in growth for the next 5, 10, 20 years. And I think, like, from where we sit in terms of the merchants that we're working with, in terms of the inbound inquiry we see, that's changing. The number of global merchants who have come onto our platform, whether they're in ride-hailing or they're in media services, the way our pipeline looks and the way our own volumes have more than doubled in the last 12 months, that shift is happening, and the infrastructure is now in a place that it can really start to support it. So I think it's like it's a question of like how soon rather than if.
Anyone else?
Yeah. If I could just add.
Of course.
Just to complement what Aaron has said. By 2050, Africa will be the most populous country. The most population will be in Africa. 60% of the population of Africa is under 25.
Exactly.
And most of them are digital natives. Mm-hmm. That underscores the potential for some of these services to actually gain ground. And just to respond to that question, I think we've had a lot of conversations with global players, and I think mobile money is just different. It's not better. It's just different from what from either DCB or any other forms of payment. And I think it's more or less just to say if those players can actually get that focus within their strategy, we are actually able and we are willing to be able to partner with them to actually see how they can extend their services to sub-Saharan Africa. So I think that the potential is immense from where we stand. We've had discussions with quite a lot of these players. And there's it probably may take some time. It's a matter of when, not if. Because once you just get to understand the dynamics, the context, I think Africa is here for the taking.
If I can add on that topic, AfricaCom is coming up. So anyone that has a specific interest in the African market in general, anything telecoms, anything African payments, that takes place in Cape Town in November. The Mobile Ecosystem Forum will be present there. We'll have a couple of sessions staged there. WASPA, the South African regulator, stages its code of conduct meetings around the same week to coincide with everyone traveling there. So there's a lot happening in Cape Town in November, and I'm sure you'll hear a lot more on this topic there. Thank you very much, Aaron. Thank you very much, Alexis. Jason, thank you very much for calling in, and we really hope in person again next year. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Anzelle.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.